Good evening, everybody. I am Sean Carlson, Blackjack 98 Enterprises. Today's date is Thursday, October 10th at approximately 6:30 in the evening. The project that you see behind me may look familiar to you because I had worked on this before about 3 years ago for one of my neighbors. And he handed it back to me and said, "It's yours." So, we're going to look at it in closer detail after 3 years of him using it. So, hold on, let me flip the camera. Oh, we're gonna do a pan on this one, everything. The only thing that he did was he went and put this brass latch onto here because the original hinge was broken. I went and put that button knob from there, right there, so that way it's nice and vertical on my homemade stand that I just made. I just flashbanged that all together. I went and took a rag and some WD-40 and wiped everything down so it looks just a little bit more cleaner and representable to you guys. This is, I would say, a collector. Maybe some people would want to collect it, maybe some people would not want to collect it. It doesn't matter because this is a rare motor. You cannot buy parts for this, as I had found out when I had worked on this previously. Looks like there's some bulging of rust underneath this paint. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna once again do a complete engine teardown and rebuild, and we will take some sandpaper, expose that rust, clean it right off, and then we'll put some we'll redo it with primer. We're gonna take this propeller off and put oil and grease into there because there is your oil port. Okay, you're supposed to put oil in. I don't know how. My neighbor, when he says that he gave it to me, he says that he ran it a few times and this thing was excellent. The only thing that he did was, or he noticed, was that there's blue smoke. But when we're looking at the propeller here, there doesn't look like there's any damage to it a whole lot, other than just the bulging of rust underneath. I get this feeling that there is supposed to be some type of cover of the spark plug for the water that's splashing around on it, so we will look into that. But everything looks pretty good. And this does flip over. We're going to do that, but we're going to take this latch off because this is not an electric start. This is manual pull start, and this is the cover for it, which has got the operation manual, the original operation manual on this thing here. Okay, so this is not the original rip cord. This is a replaced one, but I would assume this is the original handle because it kind of looks like that. But when I look at everything else inside, it looks to me like it was in the exact same condition that I gave it to him originally when I was fixing it. Okay, so we can flip this over as I had said. Just like that, and it stays. Alright, looks like we got holes here. Water intake, I would assume. Yeah, so everybody, just so we are all aware what I am going to do. Second, complete teardown and rebuild, and this time we're going to take off the shaft and look on the inside of this and grease everything, replace the seals if we can replace the seals, retighten everything with thread locker, and then repaint everything after we grind all this shit off, and put more primer on there on all the parts where you see that there's gray paint. That we're gonna do our best to sand it and then repaint it so it doesn't rust. It lasts us a little bit longer. Okay, so yeah. Now, what I'm gonna do So I'm just gonna get all my entire area all fixed up, ready for this to come apart. And then the next video will be the actual teardown and rebuild part 2 of the revisited P45 Yamaha. That's it. Okay, so to get kicked off on video number 2 of complete teardown and rebuild, we're going to start taking off the plastic housing. We're going to get rid of this rewind cord. And let's see here. Ooh, we're going to take this off because it looks like it's being held in by these two pieces here. Frick. Okay, so this came off nicely. And then these screws can come out. This one. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, different size screws. And I just noticed that this one on top here too. Oh, look at that. We got an assortment of screws. What do you know? Nice. I'm gonna put this aside right there. Let's look at the underside of it. Looks like ooh, yuck, mold. That is not good at all. Good thing we're doing this. Now let's look on this side of the engine. Okay. Not bad. We can clean everything up still. So let's take out the other cover exactly like that side. Alright, so we got both sides of the plastic cover off. We got full exposure to both sides of the engine. I don't need to explain a whole lot about what's going on here because I already did that in a previous video. But what we will do is we will remove the engine from the shaft mount, and the way that we do that is 6 of these bolts right here, and they're 10 millimeters. As you can see, this is painted on and it's flaking right off as I touch it. You see that? So somebody went and painted over these. It's not really the best thing, but you know, if you're on the ocean and there's salt water getting into everything, then you will need to make sure there's no metal exposed. So we're going to use a 10 millimeter socket and get right under here. Oh, and what do you know? It comes off nicely. I think at that point I can just take it off my hand. Look at that. See that white stuff coming out? That is salt water. Salt from the ocean. Okay, so let's look at that. See that powdery stuff? See, that's coming from the ocean water, which corrodes bare metal like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to clean this all up and let these parts soak. I like to have them soaking in CLR personally, and I'm going to do that for all the other 6, and then this can just be put right onto the table here. So those 6 bolts are right in the container here. So now this is completely loose. Because of the fact that there's a shaft in here, if I was to tap this out just to loosen this, I'm pretty sure there's going to be some gears exposed. So I'm going to try to loosen it up. The engine is probably going to be... You know what? Let me put this on a stand. don't really want to wreck the seal with a screwdriver a whole lot. But I can tell that it has been glued into place. There we go. Yes. Look at this. If you can see it, I'm just going to put it down right there. Alright. So, this is what it looks like. Let's look at this top part first on this surface here. There's no gasket there, but you can tell the paint and stuff was trying to seal it. This here is the shaft, which is, look at that on the bottom. It's a bit loose. It's a bit loose. I think I can probably take that right out right now if I tried. I'm not going to try it right now, but let's look at this surface here. Okay, so you see where I stuck in my screwdriver right there? See how I went and broke that with a screwdriver? This will normally happen, but you know what? I just felt that, and it's crispy. This is a bit crumbly. Yes, it's crumbled all to hell. Look at that. It's crumbled all to hell. So this gasket that was on here now needs to be replaced because it's aged and crumbled. But look at this part of the shaft that it was on, okay? Woohoo! And we have some type of track right here. So whatever this tube was being fed into was going into here. Okay, this is going to be cleaned out too. Alright, so this surface, this gasket will come out. Oh yeah, it was just like really loose right there. Okay, so it looks like there's a channel up there somewhere where it was being fed. Look at that, eh? Okay, so you know what? We will take this engine apart, just like exactly like we said that we would. And this part here will come off too. So, the way it looks to me that we will do is we'll lift this up. And take those 4 bolts off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Once we get that off, this cover comes off, and then this entire thing becomes loose. Okay, so I'm assuming that's a 10 millimeter again. And I gotta do this with both hands again. Oh, and we know there's a grease nipple. Grease nipple for this thing, and this, when I spun this, it was kind of stiff. So there kind of needs to be grease in this area here, and when we take it apart, it's probably going to be dry. So it's just going to come off right now. Okay, so there we go. This is what it looked like once those came out. There's some white crusty shit that came out of this. This will actually just slip out, but before I take it out, I want you to know that this is a plastic piece, this yellowish thing here. And this just slips off just like that. This looks like there's not too much wear in there. There's slight grease in there, but it came off of right here. This is the other half of it. You can see that? Now, let me put that right there. This piece here was just for this wind, just to push against the axle so it remains stiff in one position. But you can tell that on this side where the grease port is, it looks kind of like somebody did put grease into there at one point. We'll clean that up and make this entire thing look a little bit better. And now we have access to this and the shaft. What I'm going to do with this now is I'm going to take off those bolts. That bolt right there, which probably disconnects the propeller housing. There's one on top and there's one on the bottom. And then I'm pretty sure we'll have a better idea of how the propeller is put together. So yeah. After taking this off, I noticed that these came off. They were fastened onto here, just like this. They both mate to each other. They don't overlap. They just sit like that. That's how they came off. That's how they go back on. There is a rubber seal, which is right here. I'm not going to mess with this too much because it looks like it's going to be a hassle to get it on there. It looks like I got to friggin' do some type of miraculous stretching just to get this on there, so I'm not going to bother with it. When you look at this, you can see that there's lines all the way around. And that's not a big deal, but it could use some grease. There was slight grease on there, which is okay. So because these are sitting on there, let's look at the inside of these. The inside of these look just fine. There's some slight scoring on the inside, but this is a plastic piece. So there's two plastic pieces, and if there's scoring on the inside, that means it must have been dry at one point, and somebody probably just didn't grease it or lubricate it like they were supposed to. But they go onto there just like that. And we're going to have to put some marine grade grease on it. We're going to talk about marine grade grease. Now, we're just going to take off these two bolts right here. Okay, so once these two have been disassembled, this rod, which is connected to this, came right out. And this is all one piece. Just like that. Okay. Now let's look at this here. There's a lot of grease and stuff. So water had the ability to get into here. And I can tell that there was some type of oil that was on the underside of this shaft. There's on the inside here, there looks like there is a seal, a rubber seal. And I'm assuming that is what this was on top of. It was probably went directly right under there. So this probably covered this rod. And I cleaned this up, by the way. The little black seal that is in there probably touches on the outside of this to prevent water from getting on the inside of this into here. That is what I am assuming, and I would probably assume correct. Now we're going to take off those two bolts. We're going to take off the this pin here, and the propeller will come out, and then we can take off these two. Oh yeah, looks like we got ourselves an oil leak. So these two bolts, which came out of these two holes, there was in fact two tabs. There's a tab right there, and there's a tab right there. You gotta tap those up in that direction against the tabs right there. Give them a light tap and a loose. And then once you pull this out, then you're gonna get all that grease, that oil that is in there, and it's gonna come out. Okay, so now we know this held oil for that long. However, that oil is whatever it is, I don't know. We're going to take it out. It looks like I got to twist it out. Not a big deal. Okay. Yeah, okay, you know what? Let me get this out. Put this on pause. Okay, so this is off. This is what we're looking at. Yeah, the material on the outside of this here needs to be replaced and cleaned out. That was a bit of the gaskets. That gasket material is right here. And it looks like that was just glued right on there. You know what? That looks to me like it was paper, a paper gasket. That could be like a rubber material to be in fact. And, wow. You know what? When I look at this oil glob, it looks like it's a bit dark. Now if we were to look into here, we can see the gears. Okay, so this could have only spun one way, which explains why I was having a hard time twisting it the other direction. Okay, so this will be all cleaned up. Let me wipe it. Yeah, we'll get this all cleaned up around there. I'm pretty sure. Oh, you know what? Oh, yeah. Okay, this looks like a white crusty shit, so there could have been water that got into there in that area right there. We'll clean that up too. We'll put the rubber gasket onto here to make sure that those gears don't get water in them. And we'll place that gasket, of course. What I'm looking at here is this. Oh no. Okay, so it looks like somebody had, I don't know what that is. Looks like it could be something like a gasket sealer or whatever the hell. Whatever. This gasket will need to be replaced. And what we're going to do, I just noticed that there is 2 bolts, one here and one here. I assume that once I get this off, I have access to that gear, which is on the inside, and that will just pop right out. It might not pop right out. But we're going to take that off. Those 2 off. I don't know what size they are. I'll figure it out, but let me put my camera down. Once you get those 2 bolts off at the top of this, this comes out loose, but it can only go for so far because of this right there, so we can't take that out anymore. But looking on the side, this is a bare surface. There's a channel. And that channel looks like it goes right into there, which means that explains where the heck is it? That explains what this tube was. That tube probably connected to that. But if we look at this tube looks like it's broken. So yeah, that fit into here, that tube. Okay, so now we've figured that out. I'm pretty sure this is a plastic part, so this can just simply come out if we were to use some type of force or whatever. But you know what? Let's look at here something. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just gonna try to tap this out lightly with a pull motion. Okay, so I just seen something. That gear right there has a ring washer on it, which is right here. So this is separate from this part right here. This is the shaft where the end of the screwdriver is. That shaft will come loose, but this ring washer needs to be taken out. So once we get that out, then this entire shaft can come out. And I'm pretty sure this will just slip right out and be in a separate piece. So I gotta use some special tipped pliers, just regular pliers, take that out, and then this will come out. Okay, so we got it out of there. Yay! This is what it looks like when you take it out. So this comes out. This slips onto there, which these 2 pieces stay inside there. Once you get this pushed through the shaft, then you have to, in no particular order or orientation does it go onto there. It goes onto there, and then this snaps right onto that groove. You see that channel groove right there? Okay, so this goes into that groove and prevents this gear from slipping out this way. Okay, but remember, put this gear in exactly like this. Do not put it in like this. Put it in like this, like an arrow, okay? And that is because of those gears right there. I don't know if I can get those out. Maybe I can. Can I get that out? Oh, oh, you know, look at that, it's coming out. Look at that, comes out. Woohoo. Okay, so this will be cleaned up too. So these gears grab just like this. If you put it like this, it's not going to work. It's got to fit in this way. Alright? This is the assembly. Let's look inside here. There is a bearing. Yeah, looks like the grease, the oil parts. This must be the oil drain. This must be the oil fill. We'll take those out and we'll clean this out. And that part there on the inside. Let's look over here. We got some water, white water, salt crap. We'll clean all that up. We'll clean this entire thing out actually. And there's some holes right there which let the water through. I don't know exactly what the purpose of those holes and how the water works, but maybe you do. So this will be cleaned up. These 2 bolts can go back into this here, right there. Oh, the propeller. Let's look at the propeller. Nothing too special about it. That's where the pin was. Okay, there's saltwater corrosion in there. We'll clean that up. Okay, and this here. Let's look at it closely. There's some type of pin right there. I can see that. That pin looks like it could come out. For this to come out completely, so we can look inside it. This ooh, look at that. This looks this thin piece of metal here looks like it detaches. Probably has access to the inside of this, which has to do with this port. If I take this pin out, then I could take this and slip this off, and we can analyze this a little bit more. Until then, we're just gonna start just cleaning everything up here. I just got this piece off, and look at that. On the inside here, saltwater corrosion. Okay, so we clean that up, and now see that seal right there. We'll take a look at that O-ring seal right there. We might be able to replace that. In fact, this is a Yamaha, so Yamaha might have parts for this. In fact, that would be my next phone call that I could make. If they have parts, ring seals and stuff for this outboard motor. And that little pin there came out just by hand. It was very loose. Okay, so let me get everything all cleaned up here. Okay, so I got everything all stripped apart, and I just wanted to show everybody where the saltwater corrosion was on the shaft. That white stuff that you see there is saltwater from the ocean, the Pacific Ocean maybe. And I just scraped it off because it was bubbling underneath the paint. And here's the paint that it was bubbling underneath of. You can see that there's a little bit of orange flakes on there that was coming from the bottom here. That was where the water was sitting, where the water was pooling, and it was attacking the metal. So anytime that you have bubbling paint, this is what is underneath it. So it needs to be addressed. This is the reason why you should wash your boat motor directly after you use it, so that way this does not happen. We are about ready to put everything together. I got all the parts and pieces cleaned and brushed and scraped. This is the original gasket. These are the replacement gaskets. Now, I want to show everybody these little pins right here. You see that? If you're wondering where to get these, you might find some spare ones laying right there. Okay, so these are pins that are specifically meant for the propeller. Okay, they go into the propeller, not like this, but like that. And they go through the shaft right here, that hole. Okay, so this goes into there like that. This part goes onto here. That part goes into there. It all goes together, but that pin ultimately goes through this hole, which holds this together. Okay, so if you lose that pin, there are some more right there. Now, you see how I got everything all cleaned up here. Once we get this all together, then we're going to address the paint issue. But what I want to show everybody is what it is that I'm going to use for grease. This is what I'm going to use for the grease. It's marine grease, and it specifically says on there marine applications. Blah blah blah. There's all the instructions on the back, but you need to use marine grease anytime that you are dealing with an outboard motor. And for cleaning, I had went and used CLR or similar. You can also use baking soda, and that will get rid of the lime scale buildup on your outboard engine when it comes to the saltwater corrosion. So I had used sandpaper on this to get rid of all this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry this out, I'm going to sand it again smooth, and then I'm going to take some primer, and then we're going to prime this, the entire thing, everything. So that way it covers all this bare metal. And we're gonna probably paint it another color, maybe not, I don't know. But just so everybody knows, I washed everything, all the gears and components are ready to go back together. And I cut these gaskets myself, and I used an X-Acto knife, this here, from the gasket material that I bought at Canadian Tire, which is this stuff here. It is the same stuff that they use on a lot of gaskets. But what I'm going to do is, it looks wet because I just doused it in WD-40 to soak in all the oil products. But I'm also going to coat it in marine grease because the gaskets are the only thing that separate two metal surfaces between this and here. This does not go right here. It actually goes like right up to here, into this area. But to prevent water from getting into the parts, I'm going to coat it with marine grease, which makes it water resistant on the edges, so that way no oil or water escape. Oil escapes, water gets in. Okay, same thing with this part here, which goes on to this. All right, so coated with marine grease, everything gets put back together and greased and oiled with this only, and then it should be nice and smooth. So let's look at this part here. Now your bearing is into there. I don't have anything to hold this up properly. This part here goes into here like that, okay, and it rolls freely. If you put it in there all the way like that, now we're going to check for play. We're going to check for play going this way and then this way. And we find that we have, about 2 millimeters going that way and 2 millimeters going the other way. So therefore, the wear and tear from this surface to the bearing is good. But what we will do is we will coat this heavily with our grease, because of the fact that only oil and grease should be getting into here. We have a circumstance where when you put this on, water is able to get in. As soon as that goes onto there, water is able to get in because there's a hole right there. That hole goes to the inside here. Okay, so it goes onto the inside right there, but that hole there is where all the grease and the oil is when you fill it. So this part here has got to be full of oil, and there you got your oil level and your oil drain. This is where you put your oil in. This is where you drain your oil out. And these are completely sealed. They have to be absolutely dead sealed. No oil at all needs to escape from this housing, okay? Now as for water, those holes right there actually get into that hole in the bottom. So there is some type of water lubrication in the shaft here, which allows it to go, probably cool the rod, I don't know, on the inside here. Okay, so that is that, everybody. I'm going to slowly start putting this together, and I might say something else while I'm doing it. Oh, and there was no gasket. Hold on here. There is no gasket between this surface and this surface. Okay, when I took it apart, I wasn't able to scrape anything apart. There was nothing here. So that is fine, but the sealed component between this corner and this corner absolutely does need to be tight when we go to put it together and paint it and whatnot. So yeah, try to reduce this gap between these two surfaces. And be mindful, where is that part here? On this part here. So be mindful that when you do go to take these two components out, you see these little ridges right here, those indents, there's one there and one there. About those are where you stick your screwdriver in to take that apart, like you had seen me do previously. Whatever you do, take it off lightly from this side. Don't use your screwdriver and wrench too much and cause gaps or crevices on the surface here, because that does not need to be there. So put them on the underside here and slowly work it with your screwdriver. Don't wrench it and put stuff marks on here, otherwise you will need to fix that. But that's what this is for. Okay, so let's put everything together. Okay, so I'm using grease by applying it with a Q-tip, and I do that by applying it extremely generously on that end and on both sides of this, so that way it creates a nice smooth surface. And now we're going to put it into there. And I just want to show everybody something. When you put two surfaces together, they shouldn't really be sliding like this, but it's only doing this because of the bearings. So what we need to do is put more grease on there, but then a lot of you are saying, well, that's why we have oil. You need to put oil into that, right? So yeah, but we're going to take this out. We're going to look at it. So the grease is actually getting into the bearing. Everything's working exactly like it's supposed to. So I'm going to leave it. But if it spins like this, sometimes in certain engines it's not a good idea, because that means it's really loose. It probably could be just a little bit tighter. We probably need to replace this. There's probably a gap on there that's unacceptable to a lot of mechanics with respect to that bearing. And because this is a motor way back from 1960s, 1970s, maybe there's not really supposed to be that much play in there. But after putting in that grease, I just reduced that much play in that little that knob in there. So we're going to leave it. So we're going to coat the other side of the gear, which is in there. We're going to slowly put this together, and our gasket as well. But that's how I'm putting it together. So the shaft is now completely put together, and when we spin it, it sounds a little bit more sound. This gasket that I went and put in there, I can just trim that off with an X-Acto knife. It's not a big deal. And all the holes in the ports and this entire thing have been cleaned out and flushed, so there should be solid water and free movement coming from this entire thing. I will have to do another paint job onto this, but when we look at this part here, the other end of this tube, I kind of had to fish. I was able to put it direct sunlight down into there, and the other end of this tube, just fish it into that hole at the bottom for it to properly fit, and I can just feel it, the tightness of the tube going in here. So that works. This works exactly like it's supposed to, pushed all the way in. And if we were going to look at the motor, which we're going to look at the motor next, I had already worked on it, but to look at the bottom of it, that square bit there goes into there, and I'm pretty sure the outer tubing here fits into that around it, just where you see the black ring, so it protects this shaft right here. So what we will do is we will disconnect this entire thing. Again, I have already done it once before in the previous video, but you'll see me do it again. We'll attack the carburetor, we'll flush it out, we'll clean it, and then we'll clean up the gas tank. We'll look at the line for the spark plug. We're not going to mess around with the controls too much. We might clean everything up just a little bit, but this part here we will look at just a little bit more and analyze it. And you know what? Because this entire thing belongs to me, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the piston right out. So yeah, that'll be video part 3. This will be video part 2, the completion of the shaft, and as you can see the paint there, I'll have to scrape some more off and repaint it with bottom side paint, and then we'll work on the engine next as a part 3 video for the Yamaha P45. I've got some special amendments to make, which I will make in a separate video, But if any of you have the owner's manual, the parts manual for this engine, I sure look forward to hearing from you. That's it.